So for those of you who are new, this is the weekly call and podcast series of the Amazon Investor Coalition. This is our 63rd call. We've been going for a little bit more than a year. Our purpose is to advance forest-friendly economic development and the rule of law across the Amazon region in South America. And the goal of this call is to have an open mic session live from COP. A number of people on the call are there or have been there or are headed there. And we have a room that we were expecting to be filled with 12 people reporting about their experiences there this week. But no one's arrived yet, as far as I can tell. I don't know if it's traffic or Stan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about what hub culture is and the ICE Hub and what you guys have been up to, what you've witnessed this past week, and any reflections about people coming.
Thank you, Jonah. So hi, everybody. I know some of you, Bobby, hello, and Suzanne, it's great to see you, and some of the others that I've known from being on the calls over the last year. I haven't been as active the last couple of months because probably like many of you from around June or July, finally found myself on airplanes and things during the times that the call was happening after having so much time locked in one place where we could really dive deep. But I found this to be an invaluable group. And Jonah and I started talking about COP and the fact that the hub would be here. And I wanted to create a moment where we could bring you guys into the conversation that's happening here. And I do hope that some people will join. There is a lot to report. And I can say that most of it, I have to report from our own experience because I haven't left in 8 days. I've been from 8 a.m. to midnight every day in the hub. The ICE Hub was created with us and Bill McDonough from McDonough Innovation, as well as a group called Beauty Kitchen, which is doing the world's first fast-moving consumer good, fully reusable packaging. So they're basically creating bottles with Unilever and others that can be refilled and reused over and over again, completely removing the packaging waste stream from that. And over 400 locations are going to be rolled out in Glasgow over the next year with this technology. It's really the first circular economy packaging system for fast-moving consumer goods. And then many of you know William McDonough, the father of the circular economy and cradle to cradle movement. He's been hosting a number of conversations with us here. We've had, just many sessions, but particularly with regard to the rainforest, we're hosting a breakfast with Atosa from the Amazon Sacred Headwaters Initiative and Nianta from the Rainforest Collective, which is a new initiative that they're launching on Wednesday morning. So we will have a live breakfast to check in on the state of things. And we'd love to invite any of you guys to be in on that as well over Zoom, if you guys would like to join. The only problem is it's breakfast. So it's a little bit early for those of you on the other side of the pond. I could echo a little bit of what Suzanne just said about the level of investment. So for me, we've really been architecting some major themes around the hub and the people that are here. One of them is definitely, obviously, climate finance, but the fact that climate finance is showing up. So concurrently, right now, downstairs in the main hall, General Atlantic and Beyond Net Zero with Lord Brown, John Brown, the former head of BP, are launching Beyond Net Zero. This will be the world's largest climate fund. They're aiming for $4 billion under management. And the first round of that fund is closing in just a few weeks, and it's being launched as we speak downstairs. General Atlantic is putting $1 billion toward that fund, and it will be focused on climate solutions, late stage mitigation, sequestration, and other types of technologies. So that's certainly encouraging. We also have here Jeremy Collar from the Collar Foundation and Collar Capital. He also founded FAIR, which is an organization working on refactoring the relationship between the pension funds and secondaries markets around animals, particularly factory farming. Jeremy and his group have moved $45 trillion of capital away from factory farming by working to make certain practices unacceptable and by deploying standards across food. And so that's a pretty amazing outcome. I'm so glad to see you, Tosi, here. Thank you for joining. I was feeling a little lonely.
Everyone's online.
Yeah, I'm just giving a little bit of an update, and I mentioned our breakfast that's happening on Wednesday.
I see Charles and Suzanne and
Hi, thanks for joining me.
Bobby. Thank you.
Come up close. So, okay, we got getting a little bit of a crew in now. I'm just giving a little bit of an update on some of the things that have been happening here over the week. I would say in terms of meta themes, I've actually found this to be the most important things that's happened since Paris, without a doubt, because there's so much money moving. I can really, what the other gentleman said who left the call about Article 6 has been a major theme. We have an entire podcast out about it, which I will drop into the chat here with the head of sustainable investment from Man Group, where we were discussing the intricacies of Article 6 and to some extent also Article 4. And, you know, it is, I mean, you guys may have a better sense of how likely we are to pass Article 6. To be honest, I'm not sure if I'm super optimistic that it's going to get done. And of course, for those of you who don't know, Article 6 is what was left on the table in Paris around who's going to pay, how we're going to pay, and how much it's going to cost to do a lot of the work that needs to be done. But central to that is a global carbon market. And what I am encouraged about is that there is a lot of effort. I could probably count a dozen initiatives to stitch together carbon markets into some kind of unified global carbon market. We just launched this afternoon a group called the SDG Exchange, with the world's first carbon credit exchange that's fully global and on the blockchain. Another one of our partners has just signed a deal with the World Bank to build a blockchain carbon trading infrastructure framework on a network called Chia, which is pretty exciting because this is the World Bank doing blockchain on one hand, but actually beginning to stitch together a plan for a framework for global carbon credit trading. I think what's really exciting is that the market is definitely here, and there is a lot of movement towards globalizing this and really moving it forward beyond just carbon, but to look at all 17 of the SDGs and to look at how we can build capabilities for funding mechanisms to actually go and tackle a true market capability, the SDGs. For me, what's ironic, and I'll wrap up for our other friends here to speak, I've actually kind of come to the conclusion this week in a way that I never have, because I've always been a bit of a systems player. Like, I've always believed in the existing system, but some of the other conversations I've had, which we can get into, have gone very deep. Just the scale of our trajectory relative to the scale of the trajectory we have to be on is still grossly out of whack. And I've come to the conclusion that we actually need system change. And I think that system change is too difficult where we're at right now. So we're in a real pickle. And, you know, revolution, which would have been the response from, like, say, the 1600s through the 20th century, won't work because the system is both too complex and too brittle. So we can't use revolution as the answer. So it has to be some form of rapid evolution. And that's going to require some sort of massive technological rethink. And we'll have to get into what that means later. But we have another podcast coming out about system change tomorrow, which I'd encourage you to, in your car or bicycle, drop into. I'm sorry, please, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Just a quick introduction, or like a little bit on what you just spoke to.
I think let's go around with a quick introduction, and we'll come right back to you, if that's okay with you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to COP26. My name is Suzanne Bowles. I have a firm called Cattail Strategy that's working very closely with Amazon Sacred Headwaters Initiative and other organizations that are demonstrating what's possible from a place-based, nature-centered economic lens. And so this conversation is very relevant to us. I also co-sponsored a report on capital transformations that actually distinguishes between progressive capital and transformation capital. So I feel like Stan will have to follow up. Really interesting emerging field. of
Yes.
finance innovations that are looking to the ultimate benefit of flourishing of life on Earth. And there are probably some of you are among the group that are exploring some of these new models, and they are differentiated ideologically from progressive capital models. And so we're exploring the field, and Amazon Sacred Headwaters Initiative is an excellent example of a sort of a seedbed of what might be possible. And I would say, yes, technology is necessary, but also re-emerging and understanding the social connectedness of our economy, because so much of that has been sort of sidelined as we've grown to a global economy, but it's still there. And there's still a lot of value that isn't tapped for that. So I'd be curious.
And I think that leads directly into indigenous wisdom,
Yes.
which has been a massive thing here this week, but we'll get into that.
Exactly.
Hello, everybody. My name is Emily Perry. I'm the founder of Roombridge Ecosystems, and I'm an affiliate of the Environmental Change Institute at the University of Oxford. I am also a human, AI, and climate traditional ecological knowledge fellow with East West Center, and I've been working with the Good Market and networks across Asia, and that have been also looking into new systems market and systems change. And much of this is dovetailing with the work that has been moving me to be here with Ashi, and exploring different models for channeling resources into direct support for traditional ecological application and for as an aspect of climate resilience, adaptation with mitigation, and also supporting the livelihoods and well-beings of everyone within the system. So that's that's my jet lag response.
And for those of you who don't know, doesn't East West sort of run behind the scenes for G7 and G20?
There's quite a bit of that, yes.
Emily, can you say your last name again? I'm just trying to paste everyone's LinkedIn as they're speaking.
Emily, Emilie, Perry, Parry.
Great. Keep on in the circle, guys.
Come on, Selena.
I work for Stan. We're doing 44 events in 11 days. I'm kind of taking notes and resting because downstairs crazy.
But also, Selena fails to mention that she has done CEO engagement across the top tier of HSBC for the last 11 years. So she's been side by side with the entire senior team at HSBC across the board. So even though she's not saying much, she probably would have a lot of valuable things to say.
So hello, everybody. I think I know some of you. Atosa Sultani. I'm the Director of Global Strategy for the Amazon Sacred Headwaters Initiative, founder and board president of Amazon Watch, and a few other hats. But I'm happy to be here. I've been here with a delegation of Indigenous peoples from the Sacred Headwaters region. Also been supporting the Koika delegation, and the delegation is working to promote the goal of permanently protecting 80% of the Amazon by 2025. And I'm whatever the queue is, I can speak to it when we get to it.
I just real quick, I think on that systems change, I've never had systems change conversations in a hub, and it just seems to be coming up over and over and over again. And I think that this idea that profit/money is the only indicator is actually somehow, I think post-pandemic, now that we're all together for the first time, it seems really obsolete. The other thing that seems obsolete is just a CEO getting up and talking about the good thing that they need to do. And I won't name any names, but there are a number of CEOs that are known for getting up and talking about the trajectory or the line or whatever else, while their companies are filling the world with trash. And so I think that there's been a massive collective move towards impatience about that. It's like, no, everyone knows the line and the trajectory and what needs to be done. Everyone's like, what are you actually doing to change it? And that to me is really interesting and different.
Yeah, I would say what we've understood from a grassroots approach, working in places with cattail strategy, and Atosa can speak more on. I'll come from the lens of axology, how we define value. And in the current capital system where we exist, there's a definition of value that's about 200 years old, probably it's been narrowed and narrowed over 200 years. And it still functions it's still helpful in certain ways, but there's a lot of value that's been pushed to the periphery. A definition of value that I think we learned a lot about being forced into our houses for like several months. And what we can see is that who defines what value is, who defines who creates value and what creates value, and then how the rewards go back to that value are critical in terms of understanding how we preserve flourishing life on Earth. And a lot of what goes missing when we talk about systems change is that we're still coming from a lens of what we understand to be valuable from, I'm an example of the dominant system myself, right? And so we have an understanding what value is, having been in the mainstream of it. But when we're able to go out to a broader lens of the periphery and those who have been pushed to the outside of the system, who are resisted or somehow been resilient to the genocidal effects of our system, they have a sense of value that actually sees some of the flaws in our system and can actually provide a resilience to the center if we're allowed to make space for that. And so it's a little bit about technology, but also about ways of being and knowing, and also the inner dimensions of transformation that affect the systems changes, particularly at the level of society. So the inner work, the interpersonal work, the systemic social systems work, social norms, culture, what we believe, what we think economy is, and then the systems that we can influence. And so, yeah, systems change is very much about like tech and connecting people, but it's also very much about what we believe. And there's a lot of value to be unleashed there as well, I think.
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
If Atossa could introduce herself, and then you guys could each give those besides Stan who haven't spoken about your feedback about the week. If you could just give us, 1 minute testimonial each, and then already there's some questions lining up from the audience who want to, ask what's going on live. Atossa?
I did introduce myself, Jenna, but I'll say I didn't say much about what I'm up to here. So again, Atossa Sultani, Amazon Sacred Headwaters Initiative. I'm here with the delegation. There's literally about 75 Indigenous people here right now in the COP from the Amazon alone. And I'm connected to a number of those delegations. And particularly we're here with delegations from the Sacred Headwaters region. And what we've been up to is to really, basically we've been attending meetings and working on everything to do with putting Indigenous peoples at the heart of the decisions around solutions. There's been billions of dollars, as you've heard, billions of dollars have been pledged here this week. And commitments like, ending deforestation, 130 nations committing to end deforestation by 2030, which is not soon enough. As you know, the Amazon is at the tipping point. 2030 is not enough. We're actually at tipping point now. The tipping point is irreversible. To get to zero deforestation by 2030 is not good enough. So one of the messages the Indigenous contingent has been sending here is that we actually need to reach zero deforestation and permanent protection for 80% of the Amazon by 2025. Also, I think the billions of dollars that are pledged to local solutions are currently designed to go through the national governments. As you know, through bilateral aid mostly. There is some multilateral aid where we can have an influence and have direct support to Indigenous peoples. But most of the money is going to go through the national governments. And Indigenous peoples are saying that's just going to go to consultants, bureaucracy. Less than 1% gets to the ground. Rainforest Foundation Norway has released a report that said in the last decade, only 1% of the billions of dollars that were pledged for conservation, mitigation, and adaptation went to communities on the ground. So that's one of the key points. We're also hearing a lot about climate justice. And climate justice is a key language that everyone's fighting to get into the Glasgow Agreement. Climate justice meaning that we don't just want to create offsets, we actually want reductions, and we want vulnerable communities that are most affected being the ones that are supported in the ecological transition. The fact is that Article 6, I just posted to you, Stan, maybe you could post it to everyone here. The Indigenous is Spanish, but it's the Indigenous statement on Article 6. And it's all about including human rights, safeguards, and making sure that we're talking about real reductions, not net reductions. A big debate here this week is that we don't really just want to, we don't want to offset fossil fuel carbon with forest carbon when we increase. What the net impact of offsets can be is that we still increase fossil fuel carbon while we also have vulnerable at best prospects of protecting forests, given governance challenges, corruption, industrial expansion, debt. The issue of debt is a key issue. It's not being raised enough. The fact that debt is a driving force for deforestation. The fact that countries in the mega biodiverse countries of the tropical belt are using the rainforest as a mortgaging the rainforest in order to pay interest on the debt, and that ultimately they end up over decades paying several times 10x of what they borrowed. And that extra money that the global financial system makes off of rainforests are ultimately creating its demise, and that we need post-COVID economic recovery that's tied to climate and biodiversity commitments. That's been something that we haven't heard enough. And lastly, I think the other big issues around fossil fuels. We know that oil drilling is a huge threat to the Andes, Amazon, to the sacred headwaters, but also Brazil just now beginning to look at massive oil reserves. Guyana has found huge fossil fuel reserves that it's in the process of developing. And so, partly tropical forest, fossil fuels in tropical forests are a double whammy. They destroy forests and they generate fossil fuel emissions. There should be no reason why there's a new oil block or new oil concessions or a new pipeline or a new oil field that is brought online in the tropical rainforest in particular. The only reason we're seeing that is because these countries are looking at that in order to do post-COVID economic recovery and to pay their debt. And so we really need to, and ultimately that is not, it should be on the agenda and it isn't. So those are some of the key issues we're hearing about. We've been involved in a lot of discussions about. We also had a really exciting day a couple of days ago. We met with Prince Charles and the Indigenous delegation, including Amazon, but also others from North America. And we met with Prince Charles and his forest initiative that is really willing to be a partner of Indigenous peoples directly, to support them directly in their, and not just through governments. So, and also the fact is that we have the science panel for the Amazon is going to be releasing its final report on the 12th. So put that on, I think it's going to be on Zoom and on in person. The science panel for the Amazon is releasing its final report on the 12th, which is the most definitive report on the state of the Amazon, what it's going to take to the tipping point. We do want to see nature central to the debate. This is one of the first COPs ever where nature is centered to the debate. That is good. I mean, we want that, but to put it as a market-based transactional solutions is something that there's a lot of people said, we wish Article 6 would go away, we wish carbon offsets would go away. We could really talk about, climate. There are people talking about climate just certification for any kind of voluntary carbon offsets. What does that mean exactly? It means that if there was funding, it would go to systemic solutions like leaving fossil fuels in the ground. It would go to reparations, which is your legacy emissions, not your future emissions. And it would be mostly still voluntary, which means it's not creating a tradable asset, but creating a redistribution of wealth, which is obviously a key issue here that isn't really talked about enough.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Great. Others who haven't spoken yet who'd like to talk about their experiences of this week? Okay, we have a question from the audience. Amy.
Hi, everyone. It's been fantastic listening to you guys. I really sense the energy from you, and you know, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your crazy schedules to share out with us. It's been really helpful. Atasa, that was amazing, and I just could, listen to you all day long talk about the issues that you guys are putting forward, and so appreciate that. I work for Cadasta Foundation. We work on land and resource rights globally, and our partners are, indigenous communities and local communities working to map and document their rights. And in a lot of the conversations in the Amazon Investor Coalition, I'm always the one like, what about land and resource rights? What about land and resource rights? So seeing some of these really big commitments coming out is interesting. And encouraging. But I guess one of the questions I have for you all, Atasa, and others who want to answer it is, to what extent is this issue around land and resource rights coming up in these discussions? Not just sovereignty, autonomy, and resources, but also the rights issue. And to what extent is there conversation about how some of these very large investment, climate finance investments are going to reach local communities in the form of, for example, ecosystem services or other kinds of payments or other kinds of investments. Those two issues around sort of how those dollars are going to reach these communities and the land and resource rights piece. I'd love to know like what you're hearing, if anything, if that's even on the agenda at all. Thanks a lot to all of you. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. I would just say that the indigenous peoples have been talking a lot about land rights. The fact is that 50% of the world's intact forests and 80% of the world's biodiversity is on indigenous lands. And if we're going to have a climate action, we need to support indigenous land rights. Many countries that still have outstanding land rights, and you have Brazil making commitments here, and yet Brazil, as you all know, is in taking legal action to change basically land rights, to roll back land rights in Brazil, the Brazilian Amazon. And so I think that is a big issue, land rights. And the declaration, if everyone want to learn more, I would say go to Amazonia80by25.earth. And there you can read the declaration on 80 by 25, 80% of the Amazon by 25. It's calling for 100% demarcation and legalization of indigenous land claims. And sacred headwaters, we have 22 million acres of pending land claims that haven't been resolved. Indigenous peoples have filed for these land claims and they're not yet resolved. They're not yet recognized. And that's just in one corner of the Amazon. Across the Amazon, I think the number is close to 100 million hectares, I believe. I think it's hectares. So that is a huge issue. And I think that indigenous peoples are calling for global solidarity to prioritize land rights. 30% of the Amazon is already indigenous territories, but not all of that has been demarcated. Virtually nothing's been demarcated for about a decade in Brazil. So it's way behind. And in Peru, the laws don't even recognize indigenous territories. So we have some catching up to do for the Amazon. In terms of investments, we heard over and over again that right now, most of the money that's pledged goes to governments and doesn't end up to the ground. So what indigenous peoples are calling for is to have direct mechanisms of direct support to communities, not just through governments. So I think that's a key thing to figure out. There's still some challenges. How do you get money to the ground without, money needs to be flow just, gently like water does through a landscape, not to do damage, not to create more problems, but it does need to be distributed. We do need systems of distributed flow of resources. And, not so much hearing about things like, we're hearing about rights-based approach. And so to recognize that You know, in the case of many places where indigenous peoples have basically lack of access to basic dignified government services like education, healthcare, emergency evacuation in case of health emergencies, transportation. Indigenous peoples, there's a gap in terms of what governments are responsible for providing for decent livelihoods, just decent well-being of their populace, and indigenous peoples are discriminated against. They're not given the same level of expenditures publicly. So at least before starting to think about some gimmicks, just bring the playing field to level the playing field, be committed to well-being of the populace, both indigenous and non-indigenous. And that's a key message we're hearing from indigenous people. They're saying, we want well-being, not just for us indigenous people, but for everyone who lives in the Amazon. So they don't have to go eke out a living by engaging in illegal mining, logging, cattle ranching, and other activities just to survive. And so I think that's, it's a key factor. We're not currently designing for that, but that is where we need to go.
I'd like to say a few things.
Okay, go
okay?
ahead. Sure, just keep it short. We have 15 minutes left, and Marion, Aideny, and Suzanne have a question they'd like to, so following up.
Definitely. Just very quickly, in the talks, who's talking about land rights and how they're talking about it is segmented into silos according to, so indigenous groups, other ecocultural groups coming from other parts of the world, they're talking about that, and they're talking about in terms of their responsibilities. And there's a worldview that understands that they are stewards. In more the dominant negotiations, the conversation is about property, and it's still a relationship to land as if it is something to be consumed, used, bought, and sold. So that distinction is also something that needs to be gone into more deeply, and also to support the recovery of the lands back into local communities and indigenous communities. In terms of how to get money into local communities without it getting sucked down, into all the different structures that you end up with little or nothing in the community and not necessarily appropriately applied. This is a conversation that we've had ongoing, and there's a lot of convergence around this. An example, something I've been exploring with the Good Market, but I got the idea from when during the 2010 earthquake in Haiti, I was the interim director of ZOFN, and the intention was we developed a P2P online lending program. And then we worked with people who were in the IDP camps, so they didn't have to wait for relief. They could help get themselves out. We gave them support with business plans. We had community mobilization meetings. It was relationship based. And then we also facilitated management with the finance and access. And so repayment rates were at 97%. And then that money went back in. So it became an endowment, it became rotating. And so there has to be a relationship, but there's that potential to develop an endowment with a platform and then have the resources to support building the relationship. So the guidance and the determination of where and how the funding goes comes from the communities. And it's also then in those smaller amounts. In Haiti, some of them would be a $250 grant, and that would change their lives. So it doesn't have to be, we don't want to have a big money dump, but we want to have a big endowment that can really facilitate a lot of change quickly, because these are the people who have been adapting for decades. And these are the people who have an understanding of the model for new systems. They're going to be teaching us. Thank you.
Great. Marianne and Suzanne, if you guys can ask your questions back to back. Marianne first and then Suzanne, and then we'll let the room respond.
And we have a couple new arrivals too.
Thank you, Jonah. I'll be brief. Thank you very much, all of you, for sharing your experiences with us. My question is, I know that the Amazon Governors Consortium has had a presence at the COP and some publicity around it. And I was wondering if any of the Brazilian indigenous delegations are having an opportunity to access those governors and how those talks are going, if that's the case.
And Suzanne?
I just had a brief comment to add on to what Atosa said about the need for investment to go the direct finance that Indigenous peoples are looking for. And I just wanted to say that it's because we have so little time, it's a really important piece of this puzzle is setting up those structures in order for funds to get directly to communities and to sub-regional organizations. And I just think that it's going to take a lot of work of a lot of allies and some people really thinking differently, because there's going to be increased risk that's going to come along with this sort of new type of direct financing. And so it's really going to take a change of mindset, and I'd really just push for flexibility if we're going to get this done within the next 5 years.
The question, are the Indigenous people talking to the governor's delegation? That's a quick yes or no question. And then we can have the last arrivals introduce themselves. Does anyone have an answer to that? To Marion's question?
My sense is yes, they are. There's been, it's been quite extraordinary showing, especially, I mean, PB has 40 people here, just PB, and so they're everywhere, and they're basically, what I understand, and maybe Charles can speak to more of this, but they are taking a mic and being, expressing their voices and being held, being able to have high-level meetings. Sonia was in meetings with, various ministries, and also with Prince Charles and Leonardo DiCaprio, and the UK envoy on climate. I've received the Indigenous delegation and met with them, and there's several statements. There's another statement I can forward, which was the Indigenous statement to the UK government around their demands on COP. So, it's been very extraordinary showing and well-organized Indigenous delegations here.
Great. If you guys want to, the new arrivals would like to introduce themselves.
I am Devika Age. I'm the Chief Development Officer of Health and Harmony.
I'm so excited to see some of you in person, and Jonah to see you virtually, because we only see each other on these little square boxes. But Ashley Emerson, Health and Harmony Chief Programs and Research Officer. Really great to be with you all. And yeah, just what Joseph was saying, the Indigenous communities are taking center stage at COP, as they should be. It's a failed meeting that we're here at. We're not going to reduce emissions in time. And so these folks are putting everything into this. It's emotional, it's spiritual, it's really challenging. I think what they're doing here is remarkable, and it's exhausting. And they're just showing up, sitting on high-level panels, marching all day in the streets, freezing cold, and they're making the headlines. And that's what needs to happen. So this has been really remarkable, and asking for direct investment. So we're thrilled to see it. And that's our platform here too.
Health and Harmony sponsored Juma Shibaya from the Shibaya community. She's one of the youngest youth leaders at 29 to lead, and a woman to lead the Shibaya community, and was heavily affected by the environmental crisis. So it's very important that their voices be heard.
And she'll sit on a high-level panel with the Jeff tomorrow, and the Swiss minister, and she'll sit alongside Nonat Boyo and alongside Hindu Ibrahim. And so it'll be great just having these powerful women speaking truth to power, saying you have all the money in your hands, give it, put it where it needs to go.
I also want to say that in addition to direct investments, they're also very clear in saying we're not just asking for money, we are asking for permanent protection. We're asking for policy change, rules change, and systems change, value change, not just the money, but obviously the money will help.
Listening to these testimonials reminds me of the power of an idea to spread. If they're investing in Indigenous people directly versus nation states, that idea holds major power. And at the same time, in the global capital markets, there's this new technology that is upending things and helping people reimagine in a global financial system for the planet. Blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, you're all familiar with it. And a couple months ago, the founder of Ethereum wrote this landmark article about the power of legitimacy to shape cryptocurrencies and how legitimacy needs to be the foundation of global financial markets. I'm going to paste the article here. What that means is that if these people can unite around a currency or a new financial vision that the global community can rally behind, that financing could flow into that new system because of the power of its legitimacy. There's no one who has more legitimacy in the history of carbon debt than the indigenous people of the Amazon.
Jonah, that reminds me, I sent, because I don't have the ability to post Atosa's document from Article 6, so I sent it to you on WhatsApp. So I don't know if you're able to pull it into the chat.
Yeah, I grabbed it, I made a Google Doc out of it, and I pasted it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just also say
Go for
that
it.
there's been also a call for ending subsidies, ending fossil fuel expansion, and changing the development model. And then the idea of the buzzword here is ecological transition. Obviously, the governments mean something different than what indigenous people mean about ecological transition, but that is something that's at the table. And the fact is, look, there are still a ton of oil companies and mining companies that are here and have access to high-level negotiations. We learned that, the major mining companies, Canadian mining companies, were basically glad-handing with the president of Ecuador, and there's oil companies are sponsoring things. There is definitely a lot of that, as always, but to recognize that companies, I think the space is shrinking for companies to engage in greenwashing. I do think that's really, the fact that people are saying, like, first, cut your emissions, real cuts in emissions. And we're hearing a lot of critique on net zero. Also, this week is going to be exciting in a couple days. In addition to the science panel, there's going to be an announcement, and I'm excited to hear who else. But besides Costa Rica, several countries are going to be stepping up to announce their support of a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty, which basically means we're going to hopefully get on a track to have a treaty that starts to limit production of fossil fuels. Because so far, the Paris Agreement doesn't even mention the word fossil fuels. There is no conversation there's only conversation about reducing emissions, not reducing production. And I think we're going to see a kind of a watershed moment in a few days when a number of countries are going to, including subnational and local governments, are going to announce this idea of a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. It's one of the next steps.
One other
Great, I just went on the website and posted it. Go ahead, Stan.
Yeah, one other quick point is we've been hearing a lot about the potential for open source climate data. There's various hedge funds and climate finance people are beginning to talk about creating repositories or ways for data to be shared in new ways. Currently, it tends to be siloed within academia and siloed within corporations. And in some corporations, it's $1 billion business like Refinitiv. So there is a beginnings of a discussion from a lot of different people about what it would look like to build some kind of open source repository that would allow for coherent climate data across the planet that is open and accessible to everyone.
We are 1 minute left. Are there any who are participating in COP perhaps on the call who haven't spoken yet?
Charles.
Charles spoke before you arrived at TOSA.
Oh.
Charles, you're welcome to share more.
Oh, so sorry. Hi. Sorry, I was on mute and couldn't figure out how to get off. Hi, no, I appreciate everything I've heard so far. As I said at the beginning, I think the negotiations are at an indeterminate point. Something really important could happen, but it could also go off the rails. A lot of us are hopeful that some big agreements beyond Paris will be reached. I can't quite tell right now. As I said, I'm encouraged by the power of the Indigenous people's voice here. The Indigenous Peoples Pavilion is here like we've had before. This time it's in the blue zone and it's a chance to educate delegates. I think a lot of the discussions we've had are not happening in the formal negotiations, but those delegates are getting educated by all of you and all of us in other ways, and they're bringing that perspective inside the negotiations. Anyway, I'm encouraged by the explosion, the proliferation of initiatives. It's different than I've seen. I started the UN in 1992 with the Real Earth Summit. This is thousands of times deeper and bigger and stronger than anything I've seen before. So I'm overall encouraged by the way civil society is weighing in with the private sector and others in really creative, powerful initiatives that could take real territory.
Great. This brings us to the top of the hour. I understand that some people over there in COP might be going downstairs for drinks. I'm going to leave the Zoom room open. We can continue for those who want to stay. I'll just say that 1 week from today, we're going to be hosting the next call of the Amazon Investor Coalition. It's about crypto and tokenizing of the Amazon for conservation. Any final comments?
The final comment is that the other exciting thing that happened was that COICA and our delegation, the Sacred Headwaters delegation, actually had a chance to catch up with the head of the Earth Fund, the Bezos Earth Fund, and basically say, hey, what are you doing with Indigenous people? Are you here? Are you going to be with us? What portion of this money is going to go to Indigenous peoples from the Bezos Earth Fund? So there's some numbers have been thrown around, like we're setting aside $100 million to support Indigenous peoples. We want to learn, etc. So I think, that's exciting.
Yay!
So the people guarding 80% only get 10%.
Yeah.
Typical.
It's a start. It's better than 1%.
Yeah, we wouldn't turn down 100 million, but it's true. Like ultimately, these people deserve the lion's share of the resources.
I think for me, the most emotional thing was yesterday, we turned it over to the House of Original Nations, and we had Minga Indigena here. And actually, thanks to Mark, I think, who helped to tee that up, and appreciate that very much. Kalthane and I, we bonded the whole day yesterday. We sat in ceremony. Chief Nanawa was here. And I sat with a woman from the Atacama Desert, like the place that's the driest place in the world where the water meets the sky. And, it's just amazing spending time with them. And I think somebody else said, this is the Indigenous COP. And I think like a lot of us, myself personally, much more in tune with Indigenous issues since I've spent time in the Amazon right before the pandemic. And it just felt great to be able to host them. We had the Sami here yesterday, like a whole bunch of people, and we just we're hanging out with them all day. It was awesome. It was so great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was one of the best days we've ever had at Hub, and much better than.
That's so great.
Have you ever been to the Amazon, Stan?
Yeah, I went with Benki and the Ashaninka in February, right? February 2020, right before the pandemic.
You have the perfect guide in front of you, Atosa.
I was supposed to go with Atosa right after that in March, and then
the pandemic
happened and it got canceled. But I'm coming. I'll come as soon as you're ready.
All right.
So if you all see a bunch of LinkedIn requests, you'll know this has been a great conversation. You're definitely hearing from me. I'd love to connect with some of you all after all of this and have some more conversations. This is Amy.
Sounds good. Thanks, Amy. Looking forward to seeing
it'd be great. Really love, we've been working with a lot of IPLCs and globally, and just, hearing these pledges is very encouraging, but I think we all have to be super vigilant about how this ends up playing out, and trying to hold some of these folks accountable for all of this. It'll be interesting to kind of watch it, see how it plays out. But yeah, would love to talk more.
I would just say, I know we're ending the call, but I would just say I was on a call a few weeks ago from a management consulting firm that was looking at two things, actually: the rights of nature, personhood for rivers and mountains. And I'm one of the judges. There's also been an international tribunal going on this whole week on the Rights of Nature Tribunal, Citizens Tribunal, which there's a panel on the Amazon as a whole entity of the Amazon. And I was one of the judges. I'm one of the judges. Tomorrow, we're going to read the verdict of the panel of judges on the Amazon case. And the other issue was around, this consulting firm interviewing us on what is it going to take for Indigenous peoples to have financial flows that are basically effective. And they basically compared it to deal facilities. They're like, in the private sector, there's all of these facilities that help aggregate and create deal flow. Why are we not thinking about that for Indigenous people? So I've been thinking a lot about that as well.
We can link that to the open source climate data, like build a deal flow mechanism.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what we work on too is that local data collection, which is just, there's such a huge gap. You're talking about gaps with public services in these communities. And part of that is, by Marion, part of that is, this huge data gap, just, collecting data on the ground, the communities collecting their own data, managing, collecting and analyzing, sharing their own data so that the governments don't have the excuse of, well, we don't know where things are. Well, we don't have access to what's going on. And I think, that data empowerment piece is a really big part of what we see and what, our partners, what's important to our partners. So, 100% in alignment with all the things that you guys shared, and look forward to one of the things I like about this Amazon group is that just all the connections that we've made with each other and partnerships that have kind of sprung out of it, which is so great. And I look forward to connecting with you all more on it, particularly along the land and resource rights piece and the data empowerment piece with the Indigenous and local communities. That's like something that we're super passionate about, and would love to have more conversations.
Yeah, it's been super exciting to see this convergence. I mean, Atossa, you can speak more about this probably, but for me, in the last 8-9 years that I've been working in to support Indigenous voices, I feel that it is really the moment of all these voices converging at the same times and creating something absolutely amazing. I love the dynamic. So thank you again for all your work, and just want to have a thought for Stephen Donziger, that's right now in jail, and just a thought.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
Thank you for raising that. Thank you, Stephen. I've known Stephen since 93 or 4, since he started, and I'm very sad about it. Thank you for raising that.
It is actually being talked about. I've had about 3, I didn't know who he was or anything about him, but about 3 people have raised it with me, and I don't know exactly what the story is other than what I've heard, but from what I've heard, it sounds pretty bad, like unjust in terms of the way he's been targeted by big oil for the work he's doing. And actually, I think it actually struck fear in me, because it made me realize how ruthless, as we get closer and closer to success around some of these things, how ruthless some entrenched interests can become to try to take out people that they perceive as a threat. And that's something we all need to really just stand by each other, I think, and try to make sure we're all doing the best we can, but also make sure we support each other. I don't know the details of his case, but it's very troubling.
I can share it with you.
Yeah, we should do a podcast or an episode.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy that how the corporations can use the judicial system in RICO just to put an amazing lawyer in jail.
Yeah, it's very dark.
Yeah.
I posted the Wikipedia page in the chat of Stephen Donziger.
Oh, we have some new arrivals. Come on in.
Very late. Sorry.
Jonah, thanks for getting us together. Thanks for always bringing us together. We really appreciate it. It's amazing.
Our pleasure.
Bye, you guys. You have some drinks to drink. So we don't want to stop you from that. Hey, and thanks for representing. Thanks for representing, y'all. I really appreciate it, and thanks for taking the time.
If Marcelo and Nianto would like to take a moment just to introduce themselves, it'd be great.
Oh, thank you, Jenna. Sorry, everybody. We were in another meeting before and we took a little late. It's a pleasure to be here. I live in Altamira in Pará State, and I'm working with Health and Harmony together with Devika, Ashley here, and other fellows. Long partner from Atosa, fighting against Belo Monte and now against Belo San mining and promoting like forest economy, like innovations for healthcare, new business, and this kind of thing. Thank you very much to host us here.
Do you have any thoughts about your week?
Well, I'm just here with Marcelo. I'm Luisa. I own an impact business in Brazil. We manufacture menstrual reusable products to substitute disposables.
They are doing a partnership with the Xingu Basin. They have a partnership with Bela Gil, the cooker in Brazil. I don't know if everybody's aware about it.
Hi, Nayanta.
We donate menstrual cups to indigenous women. That's it. That's part of it. Women's health. Women's health.
Great, guys. Any last testimonials, or we'll let you go?
Anything, any highlights you want to share about this week? What was your favorite moment or something that you feel excited about or sad about?
Oh, I had the best first day in COP. Like I start my day talking to Bill Gates, and Bill Gates did a presentation about like low carbon agriculture. And I think one issue to discuss seriously is to push back to the forest economy, to the forest products, and how can we create instruments to create better incentives for forest economy. So this was the discussion was very good. I took the contacts, I sent some messages, but I didn't have that answer anymore. But now I have Atosa here who has her support on that. She's the women for impossible tasks. But this was really nice. Like, that's it.
Great, go COP. Okay, unless there's anything else, I think we're good.
Thank you, Jonah.
Thank you, Jonah.
Thank
you. Have a good
everybody.
evening.
Bye, everyone. Have a good rest of your week. Take care. Bye.
I'm going to leave the chat room open for those who want to copy.
Okay.
Charles, let's hang out in person. Randy Hayes is here too. We gotta hang out.
Actually, come to our rainforest breakfast. We should.
Oh, yeah.
Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. There's a breakfast on rainforest that we're gonna host with Atosa and others. So we'd love to have you all there and just pull you up, and yeah, we're having breakfast about the rainforest.
Yeah, if you know anybody in COP, invite them here to the Ice Hub at 9 a.m. breakfast Wednesday morning. We're gonna talk about a bunch of different rainforest initiatives, including the sacred headwaters.
Right.
Oh, great. Well, I'll come over there right now if I can get there in a few minutes.
Yeah, Charles, I have a story to tell you about the president of Ecuador was here. He announced a deal for the Galapagos. And of course, it's a great thing protecting the Galapagos, but my colleague Belen from Fundación Pachamama reminded him that, the biodiversity, the IUCN conference was a couple months ago. This is the climate conference, and forest is the thing, or fossil fuels. But anyway, but then I got the backstory from the Minister of Environment, who said, I gave the president's very Catholic. I gave him a copy of the Laudato Si. And he read it and he thought about it. And then he called me and said, let's protect the Galapagos. Let's announce it at COP. Anyway, I was like, well, have him read it again and make a pledge to the Amazon. Oh, we lost Charles.
He's running as fast as he can.
I like it.
I really miss these in-person things. I'm feeling I'm there with you.
No, listen, this COP was so interesting to see many people because many people are only seen on the 2D screen.
Yeah.
So it was almost like, are you that person?
Yeah, it's like, I know your profile picture, but that's all.
Some are taller, some are shorter.
That's right.
It's kind of strange because you're also masked up. So it's like, are you? I think, that whole dance.
I've said hello to several people who are not
But
people.
I'm sure they were fine. It's so nice. So thank you, Jordan, for this. It's so nice of you.
Yeah. And we want to talk more about this data question too, because
Wait, let's get some food.
yeah, let's get some, let's talk about
There's food over here.
it. Thank you.
I'm gonna just pull this up. Yeah, oh, so a little background, so I should have announced that we're all part of what is about COP.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Good
so
job.
it's gonna be a 1 hour night talking. Yeah, it's downstairs, is already finished.
Finished downstairs, so we're kind of set up for tomorrow now.
Yeah.
The lights are off.
So it's just us left, so we just have drinks up here. Does anybody want some wine? Yeah, always? Okay.
So yes,
Yeah.
red and white, okay. There's some categories.
Oh, yeah, I saw you. I saw you that. I sent you the video.
Because I asked it.
Be safe.
Alive.
Oh, that was you.
Guys, does anybody have an objection in case some of this conversation makes it golf? Jonah, would you like a canapé?
Thank you. But one thing I do want is Emily Pari's email.
Huh?
My email?
Oh, Emily's
Yeah.
email.
I can give you two emails. One is
We just talked about you a bunch.
Nangi that's NANGIEM @gmail.com.
It'd just be, oh,
And
amazing.
Great.
And the other one that I should have started with is, so it's Root Bridge Ecosystems, no spaces, @gmail.com.
Root Bridge Ecosystems. Root is in the bottom of a tree.
Yes, ROOTBRIDGE Ecosystems @gmail.
Plural.
Yes, plural.
Emily, where are you based?
In Hawaii. I was in Thailand at the time. I went from Oxford to Thailand and COVID hit and I was doing root bridge work in the region and I couldn't get back into Thailand. And indigenous people in Hawaii that I've been working with invited me there to work with their social, ecological, traditional, tech regeneration program, which I wish I had mentioned them during this call. I hope there's a way that I can add that to the group somehow because they're doing so much and they're doing it on nothing. So, yeah, so I'm
Is there a
in.
website? Is there a website you'd recommend?
Well, there are two things you could find for them. One, do you know Global Eco Village Network?
I sure do.
Okay, so if you look on Jen, I put up a feature of a project, one of their projects in on the Big Island, and it's it's an E, and then you space OLA space KA apostrophe. It's Aola Kapulubai. So it's a Hawaiian term. So KAPU apostrophe UWAI. Aloha
Wailea, W-A-I-L-E-A. So that's
Great, I'll look it up.
one of their projects, and it's Living Life Source Foundation. Yeah.
It's the Living by Forest Foundation.
Living Life Source Foundation, and they're based in Manoa on Oahu.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're lovely, and their biggest challenge right now is getting past the gap of resources. So, yeah.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Any relation to the Amazon Explorer, Pari? The
Me?
media personality?
Not that I know of. But when I was younger. No, I don't think so. I think it's one of those Welsh names that actually nobody really knows their ancestry because it was Apple-Carry. And so anyone who had, before the English forced the Anglicization of the Welsh naming. So it really is a wide
Name to choose from.
name, yeah. TMI. Where are you based?
I live in Seattle, but I'm a resident of Washington, DC for the past 15 years and Sao Paulo for 5 years before that.
Okay.
In New York City before that.
Oh, wow. I did so I used to work for Oxfam America in Boston and go to DC a lot. And then I did some work for Refugees International and IRC. So that had me up and down that coast for a bit. It's
I tried to find you on LinkedIn just because I try to paste everyone who's there. Are you on LinkedIn?
I am, definitely. And it's EMILIEPARRY.
And what is there an institutional association, maybe Living Life?
There are
Source
several.
Foundation?
So East West Center's there, Oxford University, my Rootbridge are all listed. So any one of those, it should be able to come up.
Okay.
If not,
I think maybe the issue is that there are several Emily Parks.
Okay. Okay, I think I have like the Fiji COP picture on the banner. See how often I change it. So
I searched for Emily Parry Rootbridge and I didn't find it. It was Oxford Rootbridge, and what was the third institution?
East West Center at University of Hawaii.
Found you.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, it's because you go by Emily P.
Is that what it shows as?
Yeah.
Oh, I better change that. I had no idea.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm just gonna eat all of them.
You bet.
Where's my dinner?
Hey, Jonah.
Yeah.
Next week, if you're doing blockchain and tokenization, have a look at the website's up. It's launching on Wednesday for Oxygen. We start payouts Wednesday, and we're aiming to pay directly to Indigenous communities. So,
You guys hear me?
Awesome.
So I was
Nice to meet you, Jonah.
nice to meet you too, Suzanne. You're Suzanne, right?
Yeah, we've emailed, but we've never actually done this, I don't think.
Yeah.
When I'm tired, I'm not sleeping.
It's amazing.
It's nice to see your face. Yeah.
Likewise.
That sounds awful.
Wish you were here. There's plenty of treatsies happening, so.
I feel like I'm there.
You should. Where are you? You California based?
As of a few months ago, in July, I moved to Seattle. Where are you based, Suzanne?
Western Massachusetts. I like to live rural, but I'm 2.5 hours by car from New York, so I just zoop on down.
Which town in Western Massachusetts?
Well, you went to Williams. I'm near Smith. I'm in East Hampton, which is next to Northampton, but much more fun right now. East Hampton's the fun little hub that has like all the breweries and distilleries, and like it's a beery adult playground effectively right now. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
It's nice to live next to the mountain and the woods and also be able to go into the city. So yeah. You have to come visit. When do you come back to Massachusetts? Ever?
I'm on the Big Island.
I will go there for my 25th college reunion in May or June or July of this coming year.
25th. Sounds like that's coming for me too. That's
wow.
weird because that means we're older than we were when we finished college.
Oh, wow, that's true. That's kind of scary.
I mean, we've had that many more years. We've had that life plus some years, which is weird.
Are you a creature of Massachusetts from the beginning?
Yeah, I grew up in the rural central Mass area, ended up going to Mount Holyoke and worked internationally for several years, and then was like, I just miss the New England fall and winter. I'm a creature of it, you know, is really that's why it's cattail strategy. I grew up in a wetland central Mass area, so I've got the swamp fox thing going, and yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where did you undergrad?
Well, that's it. That's all. I've just been in practice since undergrad. So I did undergrad at Mount Holyoke, and then I've been working with human. No, yeah, but I've been learning with the best on earth, and so I did the Schumacher Tools for Change workshops out in Great Barrington on like the small is beautiful and local economies stuff. So I'm smart, but it took me 10 years to get through undergrad because I was from working poor, right? So I just worked the whole time, and now I'm like, I don't really actually think I need a master's because I've had so much practice experience. And nobody ever asks.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes people are like, I didn't know Mount Holyoke had a master's. And I'm like, yeah, neither did I.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in academia.
Yeah.
I say as I homeschool my kids.
Well, no, I've been, have you listened to Tyson Yunkaporta's Sand Talk yet?
No.
Okay, so he's an Aboriginal Australian who talks about he goes through like the ways of knowing and being and the writing in the sand that they use a way of communicating. And it's just brilliant. He ties in like sort of quantum mechanics and pattern recognition as indigenous ways of understanding. And then he gets into this bit where he's like examining the public education system and its origins. And it's basically around, at some point, Prussia saw that animals had been domesticated and so could children, so they could fit more. It's super, I was like, oh, and he's like, Aboriginal people and original nations people know that children, we can remain like children our entire lives if we don't get beaten into conformity at a young age. So it's probably good to homeschool your kids.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna look that up. Is it you said a sand talk?
Tyson Yunkaporta Sand Talk. You know who? Actually, it's funny who told me. Peter Tavernisi was the one who sent me the link. Do you know who he is?
No, I don't.
He's the magician who just got Cisco Foundation to open up $100 million to climate change initiatives.
Oh, wow. Is he a real life magician, or you say magician because he's capable?
He's survived a deathly illness and came back to work at Cisco Foundation and has been making magic since. He's very involved in indigenous studies and ways of knowing.
Wow.
He's here in spirit this week. He's another North American Canadian white dude, but he's not at the same time.
Wow. Do you know Greg Landor?
No. Greg
You ever
Landor?
heard of Regen Landor?
Oh yeah.
He's based in Great Barrington and is developing Regen Network, which is
He's in Great
tokenizing
Barrington.
carbon assets of forests. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's within like a drive. We should have a coffee one day.
Do you know about Regen Network?
Only topically. I'm just learning right now. I've come in from, I was working in a community holistic movement building in West Africa for 6 years, doing similar collaborative philanthropy projects, but looking at enabling local potential, you know?
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of capacity there for future world change stuff.
I'm going to look into it. Regen,
yeah.
I'm going to look into it. Thank you.
Yeah.
We've been talking.
With the link.
I would love that. Yeah. Gabby, my colleague, who I hired this year, who's a Brazilian woman, Gabriela Sarmé, she's been talking with the, oh yeah, she's been talking with Generation Pledge a lot right now. The Marina and Sid, and we're starting to talk about what it might look like to do a conscious sabbatical movement to bring philanthropies through people who are interested in exploring, like deepening their relationship with indigenous nations on a conscious sabbatical. It'd be fun.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, that's huge. I might know people interested. And the folks at Generation Budge are super partners to do something like that.
Well, that would be fun. We're
Susan,
having a
I'll
meeting with
send you an email.
Synergos.
Maybe we should
Yeah,
schedule an email, schedule a call.
that would be
You have any
fun.
meetings
I've been wanting to
tomorrow?
meet you anyway,
Sorry, go
so that would be really cool, Jonah. Yeah,
With a lot of co-creation.
yeah. Nice to meet
And
you. I'm
met
gonna
me
go.
at COP.
Isn't
Okay,
that
bye.
weird? Isn't that weird? Okay. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye, Jonah.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Thanks for arranging this.
Bye, Atosa. Bye,
Bye,
guys.
Charles. I'll see
My
you
pleasure.
soon.
So great to meet you guys.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, I think Charles is still on his way. He'll be there soon, I guess.
He's totally darling.
Should I hang up? I guess I
Oh,
should.
cheers, Jonah.
Cheers.
Yeah, we've been talking online too. Yeah, sorry.
Marcelo.
Yeah, Marcelo.
It's